All right, hello everyone. This is D London and welcome to the Trimble Business Center Power Hour. And due to such a large turnout, we have all attendees in listen only mode, but we welcome all questions and comments. So feel free to type them into the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen so we can reply directly to you. With Trimble Business Center version 5.20, you have the ability to develop your own commands, allowing you to customize and automate certain functions that you utilize quite often to save time and be more productive. During today's webinar, we'll be taking a deep dive into the TML macro capabilities of Trimble Business Center, what they are, why did Trimble add these capabilities into TBC, and how do I access these TMLs, just to name a few. Next slide. And with us today, we have Alan Sharp, who will be presenting, and Nick Viferic will be answering questions in the background as they come in. This month's session is going over more capabilities released in the latest versions of TBC. We will be presenting the methods of utilizing TML macros to customize your TBC experience. So Alan, how does this work and how does this enhance the user experience?
All right, thanks very much to London for the introductions, and welcome back everybody to the Power Hour. I think this one's going to be an interesting one for a lot of people, I think. Okay, so the agenda that I'm going to go through is basically just to talk about what you need in Business Center to be able to create or use TMLs that have been created. I'm going to go through how to set up the TMLs, how to get access to them, how to keep them up to date, how to manage your TML library and the options you have there in terms of free TMLs and purchasable TMLs from different sources, or how you would go about getting something custom written for you if you wanted to have a specific workflow satisfied that currently you can't do or can't do easily today. Then we're going to go into a product presentation and show some examples in use. I've got some examples, just like canned examples, but I've also got one very good workflow example that I had from a connection of mine in Germany. And then we're going to go through the resources that are available to you as a follow-up and look at the next steps and then do a wrap-up. So how you go on from here if you want to take this further. So let's, without further ado, let's kind of get going here. To kind of give a bit of background, TBC version 5, which was introduced at Dimensions in 2018 in November. At that point, when we merged the surveying and the construction versions together, we introduced a new TML or Trimble Macro Language programming capability to TBC. And the good question you asked, London, which was, why did we do that? I guess every customer in the world at some point has said, God, I wish TBC would do that, or I wish that was a little easier. I wish I could automate this process a little bit more because I do this all day, every day, and I just need to save some time. And that comes up regularly and routinely. And of course, as Trimble, we can do so much. We have so many resources and we have a plan of our own, and then we get sidetracked every so often by people's requests, and we do things that people are asking for, and we look for like volume of interest. In other words, if there's a lot of people wanting the same thing, then we'll try and put it into our development process. But sometimes it takes a while for us to get to things. And in the meantime, you've got people that want an answer right now or in the next month or something like that to solve a problem. And so that's the same with every software product out there. And as a result, in Terra Model days, we had a product called TML, which was a Terra Model Macro Language back then. And that was developed by Gary Lantaff, who's one of our lead developers at Trimble on the Business Center side. And we decided we'd go back and build a TML language for Business Center. And in this case, we built TML based on the programming language called IronPython. So for those of you who are programmers or budding programmers, IronPython is the language that you'd need to learn on one side, and on the other side, you need to understand how the TBC system works and how you address it with the IronPython language. And someone like Gary in our team is able to train and educate, and there's a lot of training materials around this already available. Anyway, TML is something that you can use that basically can write programs that have user interface, can create icons that sit on menus, that can have help systems associated with them. And TML can access all of the functions of the Trimble database. So you can ask questions of the database, you can query and select objects, you can run mathematics calculations using the TBC math engines for geometry calculations, etc., and use that to deliver additional functions or additional objects or additional workflows or additional reports or whatever you might want to the software. And that means that if you can write software or you can find somebody who can write it for you, then you can basically get TBC to do whatever you want it to do within the realms of what TBC is designed to do. Obviously, it can't do things that TBC wasn't designed to do, but if you're looking at things to do with surface modeling or highways or alignments or CAD line work and points or imports or exports or running reports, any of those things are possible. And when you look at most of the requests that we get from customers, most of them are reducing button clicks or streamlining workflows or putting 2 or 3 processes together into one process so it's easier to do and easier to learn, and automating the outputs, whether they be object outputs or report outputs. So TMLs are basically designed to help people solve problems, and we've got some good examples of how it does that, and provide additional commands that do the things that you want it to do, and we'll show you a few that have been created in this process this morning. So TMLs, when you run them, they run like any other command. They can be placed on menus. They have an icon that you use to get access to them. They appear in the command list. They have a user dialog when you run them. You can use them to select objects and then run processes and compute results and generate outputs, whether it be reports or object data. And TMLs can take, significantly complex multi-step workflows and reduce them to an automated or semi-automated process, which at the end of the day gives you productivity gains and additional abilities within the software to do things that you just can't do today or you just can't do easily today. And TMLs can be created by anyone. So you, a third-party provider, by Trimble. Some of the TMLs that are out there today are free. The ones that we built from Trimble are built for testing and QA and development purposes, and we make them available to customers for free because they're just really something we would have developed in the core code, but we've developed them as TML to test the system, and also to provide third-party developers with some sample source code that they can use to develop their own commands going forward. Some of the commands are also licensed, so there's third parties coming together now, so people like Rockpile Solutions or Revenant Solutions, or there's Fernando in Germany, you'll see some of his work. These people are beginning to come into the marketplace to offer services that allow you to ask them for specific functions, and they can build libraries and sell them to you either as a product or as a service. And Rockpile Solutions, for example, is one that I work with most closely probably, and he's been building solutions that allow you to track and manage and update all of your TML libraries to make it easy to manage, which was one of the biggest problems we had in TerraModel days. So let's kind of get into the TML kind of process and what you need to know here. So first off is a lot of the information you need as a programmer or as a user is posted on this TBC Macros community page. So the web link is here. I'll be posting this presentation on the community forum later today, and you can then find this link. But I'd suggest you find the link and bookmark it. And on here, whenever we create a new macro, we typically write the documentation and post it here, and we create links to it from within the macro itself, so that if you ask for help or want to know how to use the macro, you click on the help function, and the help function will take you to the page in the right place with the right link into this macro forum. So we use this as a tool to tell you which commands are being created and are out there, how those commands work, and allow you to request features and enhancements, but also to comment on the ones that we've created and tell us if we need to modify them in some way to better meet your requirements. And we have people watching this all the time, and you'll see that TMLs get updated on a relatively regular basis as a result of user feedback. So this community page is something, if you're interested in this, to hook up with this and make sure that you track it on a regular basis, and it will give you a lot of useful information. The prerequisites for Trimble Business Center are that you need to have version 5 of TBC or higher to be able to run TMLs or create TMLs. And the TML capability itself, to be able to program or use it, is tied to the advanced survey edition of the software. So if you have something below that, you cannot use or create TMLs and test them unless you have that higher level edition. So you'd need to upgrade your license of Business Center to the advanced survey edition if you want to do this. The TMLs that have been developed by Trimble, we at Trimble, when we were building the TML language, we agreed internally that we really wouldn't be using TML unless absolutely necessary to build commands in the product. We would typically build all of our commands as source code within the core product. But as we developed the product, we found that we can move very quickly with TML functionality and release it in between release cycles. That's a good feature for you guys as customers. It also allows us to build tools that allow us to test the TML function to make sure it's working correctly. So we have to obviously build some TMLs ourselves to be able to test the capability. And the third thing is that we need to be able to provide example code to show developers or potential developers how the TML language works and how it interacts with the system of TBC. And so they have some examples that show them different techniques and how to use those themselves so they can build their own tools. So we built a number of TMLs, and we continue to do that as we find different types of examples. Gary Lantaf gives me the kind of feedback that, hey, if I see some request for a function that we haven't done in TML before that shows how to do something different, that addresses a different part of the database or a different part of the math engine, then I might develop a TML because I can expose that code to developers so they understand how to do that, and I can give them examples that show them how to do that type of work. So we develop TMLs, and those TMLs are typically, at least at the moment, are provided on top of the standard product that you've already purchased, and typically at no additional charge, unless they're using some part of the database that's licensed. You would be able to run all of those functions. And then in addition to that, TMLs are now being developed by third parties that can be licensed under subscription agreements. Like Rockpile Solutions is probably the one that's done the most so far, and they can be found at www.rockpilesolutions.com. And they have a number of TMLs that provide some CAD functionality and some data prep functionality and some corridors functionality that may help you in your daily work. And that library is beginning to flesh out. And there's other companies like Revenant Solutions are also doing some, and this guy Fernando in Germany, he's also building the starting points of TMLs. But one of my goals is that the tools that Rockpile have built to manage the third parties and Trimble TMLs, that we're going to try and drive a lot of people to use the Rockpile TML status function, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. They're going to provide people the ability to use that as a third party and push a lot of this stuff through that same interface so that you'll have one place to go for all of your TML capabilities. So the first thing to talk about is the TML status command. We work with Peter Kistler at Rockpile Solutions. He used to be a Trimble Business Center developer, and just one second. He created this TML status command that allows you to install it inside TBC, and when you run it, it allows you to see all of the TMLs that are available from Trimble and from Rockpile and from other people, and whether you've licensed them or not licensed, whether they're up to date or not up to date, and the status of those compared to the release version. So if you've got an old version, it tells you. You can select them and then update them, and it's an automated process, and it's a great tool. Recommend everybody to download and use it. It's Trimble sanctioned, so we're recommending it to people. And with that, you'll really be able to manage your TML library going forward. So the way to do this is go to rockpilesolutions.com, and I'm going to show you this in a few minutes when we get into the software. And in there, from their homepage, you'll see a link to the TML status. You download that link from their homepage, and then you run the executable. That will install the TML status tool that will then create an icon on your macros ribbon inside the system. And then you can run that command, and that will then give you the starting point for loading new TMLs and that kind of thing. So in order to be able to use TML status, though, you do need a Trimble ID. TML status is dependent on the Trimble ID system to check and validate you as a user. And so you need to go to connect.trimble.com and use the sign up function to get a Trimble ID if you don't already have one. And then once you've had one, you set that up in Business Center. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a minute. So if you go to the TML status, the rockpilesolutions.com website, on the home page, which is the landing page, you'll see this area that I've highlighted in the red box here, TML status, and you can click on that link there and it will download the TML status command. It's a very small package, and once it's downloaded onto your desktop or your documents or your downloads folder, find the file and execute it, and that will set up TML status and install it for you. And then if you've had Business Center running, close Business Center and restart Business Center, and then TML status will be activated, and then you can start to use the tool. For Trimble ID, if you don't have one, then go to www.connect.trimble.com, click the sign in button, and once you've done that, at this dialog that's shown on the right here, you hit the create new Trimble ID button, and that will then take you through the steps to create an ID, and that basically requires you to input your email address and define your password that you want to use, and that will then become your unique ID for all things Trimble, including running some additional functionality in Business Center like the background map service, but also will allow you to use the TML status and to start accessing all of the TMLs through the Rockpile TML management service. So inside TBC then, once you've got a Trimble ID, then the next step is to go to the support ribbon and then go to the options command, and within options you pick the highlighted here external services profiles function, and within that you're going to go into the create a new service, and in there when it asks you which service you want to use, you're going to pick the Trimble Connect option, and at that point you get to this dialog here that I'm showing, and you're going to input your email address and password. That is your Trimble ID information, and once you've done that you hit the test settings button, and that will then just check that your login will work. And once you see that that works, if it doesn't work, then you have to fix your email and password. If it did work, then you can click the sign in button. And once you've done that, you can then say set as active. And basically what that does is it means that every time you start Business Center, if you've got an internet connection, it will automatically log you into the Trimble ID and the Connect system so that you can automatically use the TML status function. I have to say that TML status is a web service, so therefore you need to be on the internet to be able to use it. And once you've done all this, then the TML status will sit there and monitor your activity and which TMLs you're using and whether they're up to date or not, and tell you when you're running something that's now out of date. It's a bit like Windows Update in that way. So when you've installed the software, the TML status command, and you've restarted Business Center, then you'll go to the Macros tab, typically in the menu ribbon. This is a custom ribbon that I have set up, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit as we go through here. But typically you go to the Macros tab, and in the Macros tab on the right-hand side, normally you'll see the TML status command, and it's highlighted here. And when you click on that, it will run the TML status. Now, in my case, I've created some additional custom ribbons because we're starting to get to the point where we've got a lot of different TMLs, and I've started to look at how we group those TMLs. So in this case, I'm looking here at a TML macros tab or macros ribbon that has the general functions for Rockpile Solutions and the general functions for Trimble, alongside the CAD functions from Rockpile and the CAD functions from Trimble. So on one menu ribbon here, you've got all of the general and CAD functionality that's available through TMLs. And in this case, I can make all the icons, the large icons, so that they're easier to see and read. And it's more logical here. If you're doing CAD work, you can go to the CAD macro ribbon and find all of the sort of CAD functions available. And here are some of the examples that you can see. So from, we'll get into the detail here, but show line direction allows you to click on a line and see its direction. And that's a service that Rockpile have built that is available in other TMLs. So when you click on a line and you need to know which way is left and right, so you're doing an offset line or something, the show line direction will put icons on the line so you can see the direction. And you'll see that in a little while. There's a reverse line function which allows you to flip the direction of a line. There's functions for adjusting line string elevation. So if you've got a long line and you want to take away VPIs along a line between two locations, you can do that very quickly with that adjust line string elevation command. And on the right-hand side, you see the Trimble command. So things like converting points to a regular grid, the quick line, which is like line string without all the overhead, the inserting a segment into line strings, generating VPIs at a specific elevation on a line string by interpreting from the other VPIs on the line, generating point cloud regions by boundary, being able to flip text between two locations. One of the really cool ones that's been added recently is the voice command, and we'll look at that maybe when we get into the TML piece. But here you can see just in one element, in terms of CAD, there's already an additional, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 15 commands already available to you just in this one category that aren't in the standard product. So when you run TML status, now you get into the dialog of the TML status. And so the TML status command basically is a series of columns, and it shows you the name of the TMLs that are available. And this is all of the Trimble TMLs plus all of the Rockpile Solutions TMLs. And we're starting to see some from Revenant Solutions on the back burner beginning to come available And so you can expect this list to get larger and larger. And our goal is that all TML vendors would be able to provide this into this database so you can go to one place to get all of the information you need. In the second column, it tells you the author, who this is coming from. And you can sort these columns just by clicking on the header, and it will then sort them by vendor, for instance. So you can see there's some here from Rockpile and some from Trimble. By looking in the license column, you can see whether the command is free or licensed. In other words, you have to pay for it. You can see the installed version on your computer and the latest version that's available. So those should match. And if they don't, it will tell you it's out of date in the last column. And then you can check on those on the individual rows using the first column checkboxes, and then hit the update button, and it will go through and install or update all the TMLs that need to be updated. And again, you can sort by the status and just find those that aren't installed or those that are out of date, and just click on those and then update those. So this is a very nice interface to tell you A, what's available, B, how to manage the updates of those and install the ones you don't have, and license those that maybe you need to go to the vendor to license from. So again, this is going to be a tremendously powerful service for you, and my recommendation is everybody should install this on their computer, even if it's just to manage the free TMLs from Trimble, because this is going to help you enormously. And this is something that was really missing from the Terra model days. As a Terra model salesperson, as a Terra model user, you know, I used to ask the question, hey, is it possible to do that? And the answer was always, yeah, there's a TML to do that. And then you'd say, well, where can I get it from? And somebody would say, well, I've got it on my computer or something. And here, it's all in one place. You know the latest version, it's version controlled, and it's managed centrally, and it really helps. And it gives you access to all of the things you need in here, like accessing to the Rockpile Solutions website if you can't remember the web page, and also go to the user information. So in here you can decide whether you want to get communications from Trimble or from Rockpile relating to updates that are available, or new functionality that's available, or the newsletters that come out, or the training classes, the webinars that are going on. So you can sign up for things through this interface as well, and change your you know, your personal settings and stuff like that as well. So this is a great tool. Recommend everybody to have it and start to use it. We've already got a lot of Trimble Business Center users using it today. Okay, with that tool, there's also a Rockpile Solutions website and admin portal. I showed you the TML status download, but within that you can sign into that portal, and when you sign in, you'll be able to see your company or your team's information. You'll be able to reassign licenses to different people in your organization. You can also track who's using which function. So for example, if you've got 5 licenses to the Rockpile package, for instance, you can see who's using it, and you can see who's got a license for it. And maybe you need to reassign a license from one person to another because somebody's not using the functionality today, and you don't want to go buy another package from Rockpile. So at that point, you can manage your license and manage your usage and see who's doing what with the product. And that helps you decide whether, yeah, you've got 5 users using it full time, we need to buy another seat, or no, we're going to reassign a seat because somebody's not using it properly or whatever. So you can manage everything through here and set all your preferences for your own company and how to get information as well. So this website isn't just a website, it's also an admin portal for your licensing system. Okay, so when you look at TMLs, then they kind of fall into logical packages or groupings. And if you look at what Trimble's developed and what someone like Rockpile or Revenant have developed, then they're all basically falling into the same basic packages. So I'm trying to group the TMLs that people are creating into things like CAD and general functionality, data prep functionality, takeoff functionality, corridors, and over time more groups will likely be created, like survey. And maybe some of the groups that we've created right now, like modeling, surfaces, and point clouds, are being kind of rolled together as a data prep package. In long term, they may split into 3 different packages, for instance, one for modeling, one for surfaces, and one for point clouds, as we add more and more TML capability collectively. And so menus, you know, they will eventually fill up, and you'll need to subdivide to create more menus as more commands become available. And so don't look at this as a kind of a fixed in stone, it's going to be like this forever. But right now, these logical groups seem to make a lot of sense. And the macros, when you've installed them, so when you download and install them, they get installed into this folder on your computer. So you go to the program data folder, and inside that you find the Trimble folder, and inside that you find the macro commands. And then it looks like the little picture on the top right here, where in this case you can see there's a library of Rockpile Solutions TMLs and a library of Trimble TMLs. And then there's some sort of management functions within that root directory. And if you open up one of those subfolders, then you'll see a list of files, and those files typically fall into these 4 categories, depending on how the TML was written. So there's a PNG file, which is a menu ribbon icon. So that's what the icon looks like. And if you substitute that for a different picture, then the icon will change. The PY file is a Python code file, which is in its native ASCII type format. So you can open that up and take a look at it. And if you want to change something in there, you can do that if you're a programmer. If we compile the TML so that it's a compiled TML, which means you can't get into the source code and edit it and change it, then it's a PYDLL. In other words, the licensed TMLs are going to be more likely to be PYDLLs because they're compiled and what we call obfuscated, so they're protected packages that need a license to be able to run. And then the last one is the XAML file, and the XAML file is basically all of the dialog controls and the text that appears in the dialog. So if you've got a TML and you don't like the wording in the dialog and you want to change it, you can open up that XAML file and change the dialog text values, and then when you rerun the TML, you'll find the dialog will have updated with your text, and that's how you can translate some of the dialog controls if you want to. When you look at the custom menus, I'm in the process of finishing up my custom menus for version 5.2, and I'll be putting that out hopefully in the next week. But in the meantime, I've built these different menu ribbons for those 4 main packages of TMLs, and you'll see in here what I've tried to do is highlight the ones that come from Rockpile and the ones that come from Trimble. And in each category of CAD, there's a Trimble CAD and an RPS CAD. There's a Trimble data prep and an RPS data prep. But maybe Trimble has added some surface functions and some point cloud functions. So I've grouped those logically and tried to lay them out in a nice way. And you can see the data prep menu ribbon is already fairly full, and it fills up literally weekly. You can see we're adding more and more commands every week through the collective TML development network. In the takeoff, obviously that's a little light right now. There's only 4 commands in there, but even so, there's some very good commands in that. And then in corridors, that's again growing, and there's more and more functionality appearing in the corridor menus. And we'll look at some of these TMLs when we get into the demonstration piece of this presentation. So this first example I'm going to show is from this guy, Fernando Calvo. He's a German land surveyor. He's also a programmer, so he's a very talented land surveyor. He does a lot of special application work, especially using scanners. And this is an example that he shared with me in the last few days that he asked if I could present as part of this. And I think it's a good example to show how TMLs can really help his workflows. And so, you know, he's in a unique position where he can create TMLs for himself to solve his own problems. But this could also be done by someone asking Rockpile Solutions to write them a similar TML to do the same thing. And even Fernando will hopefully be joining the TML development network at some point and providing some of these TMLs that he's creating for his own business as commercial offerings, hopefully through the Rockpile Solutions services. And but this example is he has a contract with a large industrial window manufacturer. They do a lot of new windows for new buildings, but also a lot of building windows for refurbs on buildings. And this example he gave me here is a 12-floor building with nearly 600 windows on 3 faces of the building. And the window manufacturer needs a set of very specific measurements about the window opening and the window depth and the sill height and, you know, the actual opening in the wall for the window itself. And he has to measure a series of things on the face of the wall, on the outside and the inside to calculate all these values. And once he's measured the points out of the point cloud, he then has to basically measure the dimensions in X and Y and Z between all these. And you can see this is some pictures of the face on the outside, the face on the inside, and then the cross-section view showing some other values that he does. And he uses things like the cutting plane views to create a plane parallel with the face and perpendicular to the face. And then he does a scan, he sets up the cutting planes, and then from those cutting planes, for every window, he has to create all these points, and it's something like 16 points per window, or in this case, 17 points per window, that then he uses then to generate automatically the values required by the window manufacturer. And he then connects that directly into Microsoft Excel so that the press of one button, he populates the fields in Excel. he doesn't have any data transitions or any manual typing in the data. He just basically opens the point cloud, creates the scans, picks the points, and then presses a button, and it sends it to Excel for the report that he then sends to his client as the deliverable. And this is a great example of where the tools are all there in Business Center. We handle point clouds, we handle point cloud cutting planes, we handle measurement functions, we handle create point functions from the point cloud. But to do the right points in the right locations in the right sequence, to tag them correctly, and then to measure the distances and the elevation differences and all those kind of things is a little tricky. And to do that manually for every window, for hundreds of windows in a building, is an extremely time-consuming process. So Fernando wrote a dedicated routine to handle all that. And this is an example video of that process. And I'm not going to show you the whole video because it's about 6 minutes. I will post the video so you can see it in your own time. But I just want to show you a few of the pieces here just to kind of highlight this. So he does some measurement of all the targets mounted on the windows with the total stations. Then he uses the TX8 scanner to scan the building on the outside and then scan it on the inside. And you can see he's looking for very specific details in the point clouds or from the imagery that's collected by the machines to calculate these particular dimensions. And even on one row where the windows look identical, there are differences in the windows, and they all have to be calculated individually. You can't just assume that this one is the same as all the other ones on the level here. So this is a great example of TML. So I'll just show you a few snips through here just to kind of highlight, the process steps that he's going through here. So the first thing here is he's taking the scans, he's bringing the data through. He's got all these control points that he uses to georeference all the scans together. And then the next step is he takes that into the Trimble Business Center environment. So let's just move forward a little bit here. And this is the inside of the building. So again, he sets the total station up on the inside, he sets up the scanners on the inside, and he's measuring, and he's looking for all of these points around the window frames on the outside and the inside. And these are all the points that he has to create and the measurements and the outputs that he has to calculate. And then from that information, he has to then generate this Excel spreadsheet as his deliverable to the client with all the dimensions. So the distances, say, between 2 and 3, between 1 and 4, between 9 and 7, between 6 and 8. These are all dimensions on this plane that he has to calculate, and he has to do that on the inside and the outside of the building. And then he goes to the cross-section view of the cutting plane to calculate all these other individual points to get all the elevation differences between these points as well. And so he does all the measurements on the back end for each individual window as part of his deliverable process. So we move fast forward a little bit here, then this is the kind of spreadsheet that he has to create, and he has to fill in all these values. Sorry, it's in German here, but he has to fill all these values in. In the past, he used to calculate them and then fill them in by hand. And in that process, you get some transcription errors. You've also got to use the calculations and stuff. Whereas now he just has this connected directly to Business Center, and he's populating the data into here as he goes. So I'm going to fast forward here to the end of the process here to show you this is him now picking points out of the cross-section view. For instance, this is the cutting plane. So he's sliced through the wall. He's measuring the sill inside and outside. He's measuring some key points out of this model to get his extraction points. And then he's filling out this table of values as he goes. And then at the end of it, he just presses the apply button, and all this information will end up on row 20 with this tagging and this layer in the database that he can then deliver out to his client for the window manufacturing process. And so his final kind of process here, if I just step forward a little bit here, is he presses the apply button, and that row of data gets populated for that window in one step. So this kind of shows you how external tools can be plugged in, how you can use TBC's standard functions and integrate your own functions on top of that to deliver a total solution to the application. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. You can watch this video in entirety, and there is voiceover on it as you want to take a look at it, and hopefully that will show you what you need to show. Okay, so in this case, to summarize the TML benefit to Fernando in this case was that it increases his productivity on the back end. The field side is still the same, but on the back end where he has a bottleneck in time and also a bottleneck in resources to do that processing work, this increases productivity enormously to get the data out in the format that he wants. TML also increased the quality of his deliverable data and eliminates all the transcription errors. In other words, he doesn't have to calculate things and then type them into a spreadsheet. This is all automated, so the calculated values get populated automatically, and so there's no transcription or typos that get into the data. the TML writes the result data from the program measurement process into Excel directly. So there's no writing a report, then copying the report into Excel. There's a direct link between the two products. TML creates the customer deliverable in exactly the format the customer wants automatically. The TML then leverages all of the power of TBC to transform the way that Fernando delivers his results. And he writes his own TMLs. However, those could also be written for you by third-party providers like Rockpile Solutions or Revenant or whoever. So what makes up a macro? I mentioned it earlier. So every macro has its own menu icon. The command dictates which menu it goes on, which tab it goes into. It also has all the program functions, the things that you want to be able to do and what you want to calculate. It has the user dialogues, which you interact with. It has a help system, which can go to, for example, the Trimble's Macro Forum. If you post your help system there, you can go there to get the help. You can add tooltips and buttons inside the TML itself to add help. And some have integrated help with the Trimble help system. So all of those are possible through the TML system. And then licensing control, if you want to add that so you can license and then sell the services that you provide, if you're a developer, then you can use the Rockpile Solutions license and e-commerce site to actually deliver those to customers. And Rockpile is looking at adding QA support and documentation and marketing support to you if you want to use them as a service to sell and distribute commands that you create. They'll validate what you do and provide a service on top of that, obviously for a fee. So to jump in now to sort of show you how this really works, the TMLs, I'm going to show you a few TMLs just to kind of show you and give you a feel for what they actually do. So I'm just going to switch to Business Center here. And if you've got questions on what I've covered so far, please put them into your comments through the interface of the Zoom system, and Nick will try to field those questions and answer them as we go. So in this example, I'm going to just jump to the corridors macros just to kind of show you how a few of these would work. One of the commonest questions I get is, I need to be able to input station offset data into Business Center, and there's no easy way to do that. We can do it through Excel and import it, but I want to be able to do it online. So we've written a TML just recently to do that. So station offset by points. And in here, you can see when you run it, it creates a command. That command looks exactly the same as the Trimble Business Center commands. So it has the same capabilities, the same functionality as a normal dialogue. You can go in and put in a point number. So I can say, let's start with point number 50. Which layer do you want to put the data on, and this gives you access to the layer list. Here you can pick the reference alignment, so I'm picking the horizontal alignment, and it gives you a list if you want to, or you can create a new one. And in this process, this was one that was written by Gary in the Trimble team, and he created a new type of point, which is a dependent point. So a dependent point basically means if this alignment moves, then the points will move with it. So for instance, these points here are created by station offset to this alignment. If the alignment moves or the alignment changes because you change a radius, then these points would move in relationship to the station offset values you keyed in. If you don't make them dependent, then they become just standard grid points that you can then use as a normal point within the database. So they have XYZ coordinates, whereas before they'll have a station offset coordinate. So in here, I'm going to create dependent points, and I'm going to go in and enter a station. So I'm just going to pick a station here, and let's say it's 685. So let's do 685. And what offset do I want? 20 feet to the right. Elevation of 100, and a code is, let's call it right, and hit apply. And so now you can put sticky buttons on these just like other commands. And so now you can say, I don't want this to stick, I want this to actually ask me each time. So I'm gonna go 695 and use the same offset and elevation, apply. And you can see now it's creating these, and then 705 and apply. And then 715 and apply, etc. And so you can go through this and create points pretty quickly. If I go in here and go back to 695 again, and I'm going to go -20 at this stage, -20, and put in elevation and then call it left and apply. And then I can do the same thing. Actually, I'm going to put 685 in out of sequence now and say apply, and then go to 705 and apply. So whether you put these in the right order or not, it doesn't really matter. And so now you've created all those points by station and offset. And if now the next thing is, now I want to join these points, and you can join by point sequence, but the trouble with point sequence is that they'll only join in the correct order. So it will go 54 to 55 to 56 to 57. That's not maybe what you want. So we've written another command called line string by station. And that command basically allows you to pick a number of points. You can pick all these points and this one, and maybe these points down here. And you can specify the alignment that they belong to. Then it computes all of them by station and offset. And you can then say maximum segment length. So if you know the distance between them is 10 feet or 10 meters or whatever, make sure you put in a value bigger than that. So we're going to say it's less than 20, but more than 10, and hit apply. And you'll find that it now joins the dots between those two. These strings that are created are dependent strings, so they're dependent on the points. So in other words, if the points move, the strings will go with them. So again, showing how you can take a simple command like station offset elevation input, create the points as dependent points. If I now move the alignment, so if I now go to the CAD and move command, if I now say move it from, let's say pick this object rather, and I want to move it from here to here, and node delta elevation, hit apply, 0, make it 3, and hit apply. You can see that the alignment moved, but because the points are dependent and because the lines are dependent on the points, everything moved in real time. So again, nice way of bringing together a set of data. So if you've keyed it in by station offset, and then later on you find you've made a mistake with the alignment entry, you fix the alignment, but now the station offset is recalculated and everything updates automatically. So again, not just saying we're going to give you a station offset elevation command, but now taking that workflow and expanding it to give you something that's way more powerful, and then providing some additional tools that take it another step further to be able to do more work. So it's a great example of where a set of commands can really help you. I want to show you one more thing here in this particular example. I'm going to go back here and say, okay, let's create some more points by station offset and start off with point 58. Let's pick the starting station here, make it 20 feet offset and elevation of 120, let's say. And I'm going to call this top for a top of wall, for example, and say okay. And then do the same thing as we did before. So let's say 695 at the same elevation, hit apply. And let's do 705 at the same elevation, and then 715, 15, and hit apply. And so now if I look at this in 3D, what I just created here is, this is the base of the wall, this is the top of the wall, and it's exactly the same offset because that's what it said on the plans. So now if I now say, let's use that, pick those 4 points here and say line string by station, let's create that off the same alignment and use the same process here. So now I've got a line here, and let's say now I take this line and say, let's make a surface out of that. And let's say I want to make this as the retaining wall. So I'm going to call this wall face and make it a design and make it, let's say, red for wall, and pick those 2 lines and hit OK. You'll see because these 2 lines are directly on top of each other, but they're separated vertically, you get a set of flags, and the surface is there, but it's not forming like you expect it to because of the verticality of these 2 lines. So the next thing I need to do is move this line laterally by 1/100 of a foot to make the surface non-vertical, and then it will calculate correctly. So if I go to data prep, Rockpile did a great little tool called nudge line, and the nudge line command basically allows you to pick the line string you want to nudge and the direction you want to nudge it. Now this is where the show direction indicator thing comes in. This is part of the show direction function, but it's now embedded in this command as a service so that we can provide this to third parties that want to develop TMLs that need a show direction function. And this is driven by our show direction command, but it's embedded as a link in this service. So here we can actually see the line direction with a set of indicators to show us the line is going this way. So I want to nudge this line right, and I want to nudge it by 0.01 feet. Now if I hit apply here, what happens there is that line just got moved laterally using a standard offset function, and it didn't get deleted and then recreated, it just got moved, and as a result of it being moved, it's still part of the surface, so the surface gets updated and the flags disappear, and now you fix the problem. And so again, one little command, the nudge line, allows you to do all those steps which you normally have had to offset the line, delete the first line, add the second line to the surface, and rebuild the surface, and then you'd have the result. In this command, I just pick the line, nudge it, and everything gets fixed automatically. So again, showing how TML can turn what was a relatively multi-step, not complicated, but difficult process. And if you have 50 retaining walls to manage, that can get painful after a while. This command really just helps to make that process a lot more streamlined and a lot more useful, a lot easier to work with. So again, TMLs really helping to improve productivity, functionality, usability. You come out of this fresher because you're happier doing the job because you're not fighting the system. The TMLs really help to streamline that for you as you go. So anyway, that's the first set of TMLs I wanted to show you. The second set I wanted to show you here shows some of the road functionality. If I just pick up this corridor strings function here, I had a lot of questions around corridors and modeling from strings and things like that. So in this example, this could be a data set that came in from a third-party design system, could be Bentley, it was timely. Bentley strings come in and you've got an alignment, you've got a set of strings, maybe you've got some utilities. I'm just going to turn that layer off for now. I don't need to see that. So I've got an alignment, I've got some strings, and I want to calculate some offset surfaces based on the string. So for instance, I might have 2 strings to define the pavement, and I want to extend the pavement out 20 feet or 10 feet. Or I might want to extend it out 10 feet and drop it by 2 feet. And so we've written some tools here called offset slope and slope to help us calculate some of these relatively complicated things. So go to offset slope, and here we can pick the first reference line. So I'm going to turn off the alignments here for a second. Let's just turn off the road alignments. And I'm going to pick the road centerline string here as my reference line. And I'm going to say I want to, this is 12-foot pavement here, so I want to come out, let's say 20 feet or maybe 22 feet. So it's 10 foot outside the edge of pavement. And I'm going to use a second line for the slope. And if you say no to that, it asks you for the slope. In this case, I want to use a second line because this pavement is super elevated. So I'm going to pick my edge of pavement string, and then I can put in a vertical offset. In this case, I can say I want to be 2 feet lower. And if I click this little icon next to it, it'll be a perpendicular offset. So you can use verticals or perpendiculars in this case, and say I want to create the offset lines in this process. You may only want to create you may want to create just one line, or you might want to create all of the lines. So the offset this one, and offset the created line. And then the offset line, I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to call it offset 1, and I'm going to put it on a layer called, let's put it on the points layer for now. And then it asks you for the alignment. So I'm going to pick the alignment name. And when it asks you for the sampling distance, you can put in a value if you want to calculate this every 10 feet or something. But if you put in a value of 0, whatever the sampling interval is on the source data, it will use it. So typically when you get road data strings like this, they're calculated every 10 feet or every 50 feet or something like that. If you put in 0, it will use whatever the strings have. And if you only want to do it over a certain range, you can put in a start station and end station, and it will only do it over that range. Now, if you watch what happens here, if I hit apply, what it's going to do now is it creates me an offset string for this one, an offset string for this one, and then projects that slope out to the 22 feet. So this is now a 10-foot offset at a 2-foot vertical bus. And now you can see I've got the strings that I need to calculate that subgrade adjusted surface. So if I now say, let's close here, and let's pick that, and let's go find that third string, wherever it was. I think it was this one. Now I can say, make a surface out of that using the normal surface command. And let's call it sub extended, and make it a design and make it orange, and say pick that and say okay. That builds me the subgrade adjusted surface. And if I look at then the turn off the points layer a second and turn off the surface for a minute. And now I can pick the finish grade line work that goes with that and say, let's make a surface out of that and call it finish grade. And make it a design and make that, let's say red, and okay. And so now if I go into the plan view and do a surface slicer through that, you can see now what it's done here is it's taken the slope between these two nodes, and you can see this element, the ditch here is horizontal, but we've extended the grade out at that 2-foot vertical offset out to the 22-foot distance to create that third point. And from that, we can then create the surfaces. So this is a really good tool for calculating subgrades and things like that from source string data, whether it be a surface model or a corridor model that you've created or some strings. that you've imported from Bentley or 12D or whatever software you might be using or the designer might be using in your area. So again, a nice demonstration of a really good tool that takes all the standard functionality of Business Center, but packages it in a nice way that makes it really fast to do a relatively complicated job here. And when you look at the other one, the slope one, that one basically does a similar job, but in this case, it takes, if I just pop up my little diagram drawer here, take a second to come up. Let's put a whiteboard up here and let's just draw a diagram. What the other one does here is if you have, let's say, string 1 and string 2 for a pavement, and then maybe you have string 3 and 4 for a side slope, and let's say you, from this line between these two, you want to come down perpendicular or vertical to these two, and from these two here, you want to come down, let's say in this case, vertically, or you might want to come in perpendicular here and here and compute this down to here. What it does is it calculates the intersection of these two to create you this string, and then you get this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one calculated, and then you can use those strings to create your subgrade adjusted surface, allowing for topsoil stripping and also pavement or subgrade extension. So the slope is basically similar to the offset slope, and that it now uses 2 pairs of strings to calculate an intersection. And it's great for doing fill embankments or for doing subgrade ties where, for instance, you've got your pavement like this and this. You say, I want to come down here and here to find this, and I want to come out here to find this, and I want to compute this point right here, or you can find it where it projects out and finds this. So whether you're using topsoil removal or not, or topsoil replacement or not, you can actually put in a 0 offset for this, and it will calculate where the subgrade slope ties to the embankment slope, for example. And again, a really easy way to create new surfaces from existing string data that you may have. So looking at all these different TMLs, obviously we haven't got time to go through them all, but the benefit of them is the same. No matter where you look at it, is it takes a set of functions, the power of TBC, and a workflow requirement, and packages them up in a way that makes your life easy. And there are many, many TMLs already available, and I just expect to see this explode over the next 12 months as Rockpile get more engaged, as Revenant get more engaged, and as Fernando and other people like him get engaged with building these tools for the industry, and then having someone like Rockpile pushing these out to the marketplace to help you get your job done faster and more productively. So jumping back to the presentation, additional comments, some TMLs are going to be version dependent of Business Center, because if you call a function that's only applicable to version 5.2 of the software, then the TML will be version dependent. Business Center does check that. So when you try to install TMLs, if you've got an older version of Business Center that can't run that TML, it will tell you that's the case. It does help if you keep your TBC license current. TML status does check your running version against the version dependency requirements of a TML, and it will try to manage the mismatch for you, and it's pretty good at it right now. TML status is always running in the background when you're online. So when you start a TML, it does check the version of a TML against the database version and tell you if it's out of date. And watch the TMLs, they're evolving rapidly. I go in there pretty much every time I run Business Center as a quick check, because most days there is something that's been updated or modified in a TML, either fix a bug or add an extra button or an extra switch or an extra control that somebody's asked for to make the function a little bit more powerful, a little bit better. So do look and watch for that on a daily basis, because it does make a huge difference to your daily work as you start to adopt these. So in summary, TMLs can be developed at any time. They're not dependent on the next release of the software, so you don't have to wait for 3 or 4 months for the next release to come out. TMLs can be released without waiting for a future release. So if somebody, for instance, says to us, we're absolutely interested in buying the software, but we absolutely need this function before we can say we'll buy it, then it's possible for us to do that outside a release cycle if we need to, either as Trimble, or we can contract a third party to do it for you. TMLs can do anything that TBC is capable of. I don't think there's any restrictions whatsoever on the database or the objects you can create and that kind of thing. So you can basically do anything and use any of the functionalities of the TBC math engine. TMLs can automate or fill in gaps in processes and workflows. So you can either add commands to fill in a gap, or you can create a TML like Fernando's that basically takes care of a whole process. TMLs can create all new processes and all new workflows using the same software in the same database. TMLs will always enable you to reduce pointing and clicking, which is obviously, people hate doing it, but it's a fact of life. TMLs can always make processes easier. TMLs can also use external tools and services like Excel or external databases or libraries or other applications to either push out data or pull data back in. In use, the TML doesn't look anything different to a TBC function. You can make it look different, but we recommend you to adopt the TBC style guide and standard and use that. TMLs expand TBC's capability and the horizons of its use. By creating new functions, Fernando, for example, tackled the window manufacturing business and the needs of surveyors to be able to satisfy that business. And TMLs can be developed by any Python-capable programmer. Yes, there's a learning curve for the TBC part, but if you can write Python with some additional help and some exploration of the database, you can learn how to write TMLs pretty quickly if you're a Python-capable programmer. So on that basis, I'm going to hand over to Nick for resources and next steps. So Nick, I hope you're there. Please take over here and talk through the rest of the pages here.
All right, I'll go ahead and jump on. It looks like Nick had a flight, but thank you, Alan. That was very informative and educational. I hope it was that for everyone else as well. Looks like all the questions were answered. So if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A or reach out to us directly and we'll get right back to you. Let me go ahead and take over.
Oh, sorry, I've come out of here, sorry.
All right, can you see my screen, Alan?
Okay, I did, but.
All right.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. I have some additional TBC user, learner, and distributor resources and links here for everyone. We have the TBC Macros community page that Alan went over, and this is a spot where we can share user-created macros, get feedback, and download other macros from the TBC team. We'll definitely share those links with everyone as well. We have this in a recording, so we'll share the recording link for everyone if there was any information that you missed. And also, please visit the TBC web pages for your construction and survey needs. This is where you can view the latest webinars, read customer success stories, and also take advantage of solution downloads. And then you also have access to the TBC webinar archives to view past webinars and also view this webinar once we get it posted up on the site. And if you need help with certain functions and features within TBC, please visit the Construction and Survey YouTube channels to get easy access to the free educational content that's available there for you. Here's just a screenshot of the TBC Power Hour archives that are going to be available to you. And also, if you're looking to see how your peers are utilizing TBC, or if you have any questions that you would like answered, please visit the TBC community pages. And this is available again for both construction and survey, so you can get the latest product news in a social community environment. And to learn more about Trimble Business Center and take your education to the next level, we can provide you with access to the Trimble Library, and it's a unique online learning and communication system. And to get your free access, please follow the link at the bottom, trimble.retrieve.com. Again, we can share these resources with you, and they'll be available on the recording. And download a free trial version of TBC at the following link, or you can contact your local Trimble dealer for a demo license. And those who are new to TBC, start following the provided tutorials that are available there and other resources, again, such as YouTube videos, which are great teaching tools for both new users and old users. And we have some upcoming TBC Power Hours that we would like to shout out to you guys. We have the CEC Division Power Hour coming up next month, February 12th. So please mark your calendars. And if you're interested in the Geospatial Division TBC Power Hour, we have one coming up at the end of the month, January 29th. So please mark your calendar for both of those, but we'll be sure to keep you updated with the registrations. So again, thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us. We hope it's been informative, and we look forward to seeing you next month. I'd like to give a special thanks to Alan and Nick again for hosting this webinar, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Delondon, and look forward to talking to you all. If you've got any questions, some of you have also got my connection details, alan_sharp@trimble.com. Please feel free to email me or ask questions through direct email or through the forum is the easiest place. And I'll be more than happy to try to answer those questions as they come up in the next few weeks. Okay, thanks very much for your time. Have a good day.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.